Alright guys, so the CW finally the other day made a decision on their few remaining DC shows that they had going. And, obviously the Arrowverse has come to an end, the Flash is over. So all that was left was Superman and Lois and Gotham Knights. Now, we saw the other day Gotham Knights was not so lucky because that show was canceled after its first season, and it's still in the middle of its first season. But Superman and Lois was fortunately saved. This season will continue and will go on for one more season, a 10-episode season on the CW. I know a lot of people wanted to see it maybe go to HBO Max. That would have been awesome, but that is not going to be the case. And they don't say it here anywhere about it being a final season, but I'm assuming, especially because it's going to be only 10 episodes, I feel like it's probably going to be a final season. So I appreciate at least that they're not just going to leave it off with a cliffhanger at the end of season 3, like probably how Gotham Knights is going to end, and we'll at least get some nice closure to these characters and to this story with a fourth and most likely final season. Now, there's a catch though. So as cool as it is that we are getting a Superman and Lois season 4, that's great and everything, but it's going to be, like I said, still on CW. And we were, again, hoping for it to go to HBO Max, or just Max as it's called now, because that would, of course, mean a higher budget, and also more people would probably watch it. But yeah, it's staying on the CW, which already CW budget is not great. And we've saw how budget on this show has maybe gone down since the first season a bit. But now it's going down even more. So not only is it going to be a reduced season in terms of episodes, only a 10-episode season, it is also getting the budget chopped at least in half. And that is really bad. Really, really bad. Which, I mean, it's bad enough in terms of the CGI and special effects. Because, I mean, especially for a Superman show, that's kind of important. But then we started hearing about how these budget cuts will also include cast members. So some of these series regulars will not be series regulars in this season 4. And we first heard about this the other day with the actor who plays General Sam Lane, of course, the father of Lois Lane on the show. His wife took to social media and confirmed that he was cut out of the season. He was taken out of his series regular position for season 4, and he was offered to reprise his role in maybe a guest starring role or just a cameo or something, and apparently he 100% completely declined. So the last time we will be seeing General Sam Lane is in season 3, which is really unfortunate. But then today, Deadline put out a whole article about he's not the only one that's not coming back. Apparently they fired pretty much the whole cast. Everybody on screen here, except for Lex Luthor, which I'll talk about him in a second. Everybody standing up there above, they will not return for season 4, at least not as a series regular again. They've all been offered to return in smaller roles, guest appearances and stuff like that, but they will not be series regulars, which, again, is really unfortunate, because, some of these characters, sure, some of their storylines aren't, always super interesting, but they're all part of the show. It won't feel the same without some of these characters. Especially some of these characters, Will Parks as John Henry Irons. That was a character from the first season. I love the twist with him. He's just been one of my favorite characters on this show. Lana Lang, of course, is a classic Superman character. And, you've had the whole thing going on with her and her husband and the divorce and her kids and everything. But, of course, it does make sense if you're not going to have one of them on there, why you wouldn't have the rest of them as well. But, yeah, it sucks because basically all that we're going to have left is the Kents. And I'll talk about that more in a second, how that's going to work. But this does seem to be that they're possibly leaving behind the Smallville life. So the one thing to come from this, though, they're getting rid of all these series regulars and instead upping Michael Cudlitz as Lex Luthor to a series regular. So they're firing all these other people and upping up this guy's role. Now, Michael Cudlitz was cast as Lex Luthor in Superman and Lois season 3. He has still not debuted yet. So, I'm assuming he probably won't have a huge role in season 3 because there's not a whole lot left of it. So it is probably more set up for season 4, which I think makes sense. And if you look at it that way, especially if it is a final season to have Superman versus Lex Luthor, that be like the final showdown of the series, I think that makes sense. I think that's a really cool way of going about doing this. It just does suck that we have to get rid of like the whole rest of the cast. And the biggest way that or at least I think the easiest way to explain this, is that after season 3, the Kent family will move back to Metropolis. Because, of course, that was one of the premises of this show when the series started, was that, okay, Clark and Lois, they now have teenage sons. They want to get away from the busy superhero city life in Metropolis, so they moved to Smallville to give their kids more of a normal teenage life. And so we've spent the first 3 seasons living in Smallville, and that's where we've gotten to know all these great supporting side characters. But, I mean, the easiest way to explain why we're never going to see them again is just if we go to a new town. Now, that doesn't really work for General Sam Lane, because I'm pretty sure he's still, like, at least lives, or at least his base is in Metropolis anyway. So I don't know how that'll work. Especially, I mean, like, it's Lois's father. So I'm not sure how they'll explain that. But I'm assuming they're just going to move back to Metropolis, which I think makes sense. There was also a rumor going around that their, like, contracts for the Smallville sets are supposedly expiring. So maybe this is something they had to do anyway. So we're going back to Metropolis. Again, that's just a theory, but that just kind of makes the most sense. That's where Lex Luthor is. They could also tie that into the whole storyline that we've got going on in season 3 with Bruno Mannheim and his whole, like, you know, the suicide slums and everything, that, like, things are not going great in Metropolis right now for certain parts of the city. They could explain it as maybe when Lois and Clark moved to Smallville, the Daily Planet fell apart because Lois Lane wasn't there, and also Clark Kent, of course. And then also with Superman not living Metropolis, it became more neglected. Maybe crime has risen since they left, so they could feel more responsible for that, and that's another reason they returned to Metropolis. I think that would be an interesting way of going about doing it. Again, that is just the easiest way to write out those Smallville characters. And the way we're looking at it now, basically our cast that we have for season 4 is you got Superman, you got Lois, you know, like the title says, and then you got Jordan and Jonathan Kent, and then you got Lex Luthor. So that is, that's going to be about it. I'm not sure, again, how any of this is going to work. It does suck, especially because some of those characters are just so important to the show. It's not going to be the same, but at the same time, I mean, also to be fair, in only a 10-episode season, they won't really have time to do filler storylines like they've had with these other supporting characters. So I guess it makes sense, really put the focus on Superman and Lois and the kids, you know, like this series originally intended. So I think that's a good way of going about doing things. It just is kind of unfortunate. But I do appreciate that we are going to get at least, again, I'm assuming it's going to be the final season, that we'll at least get a nice closure and a nice, you know, the writers and the producers and the showrunners decide that this is how they want the show to end, and that's how it's going to end. So we'll see how it ends up going. Again, season 3 isn't even over yet. Lex Luthor hasn't even debuted yet. But I'm really excited for this. I love this show. And while this is unfortunate, I am glad that, again, we'll at least get the closure for the characters that we will have left on the show. So anyways, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think about this news? Yay, Superman and Lois season 4 is happening. The show got renewed, but at what cost? So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Please drop a like if you enjoyed this video and hit the subscribe button so I can keep it up to date on everything that goes on in the DC life.